What's up, DeWayne? Oh wait, I got it on mute. No wonder I couldn't hear shit. Oh crap! Hold on. No wonder I couldn't hear shit. It was on fucking mute. All right, there we go. Shit. All right, there we go. This new Facebook, man. I want this shit to go back. How do you... This new Facebook is whack, man. Oh man, I wonder if I can revert this shit back.
It's a new app you downloaded.
Yeah, it's like it changed everything, and I think I did that shit by accident. And that shit, I don't know where nothing's at. Jesus.
I forgot to send you that song too. My bad, man.
All right, man. Tasha is in the house. We got Chris, Maya, Danny Redwine, Robert, and Luke. DrAmirah might be joining us as well. You haven't met her. You like her. She's real cool.
Okay.
Good sister.
Does she live overseas?
No, DrAmirah lives in Louisville, but she's from St. Louis.
Okay.
So
that's not the one who was on one of the episodes that I was on before.
No, yeah, you never had her on there. So she said she was coming from St. Louis back to Louisville. So she said that she was gonna try to come in at least before it ends. So, okay. But yeah, she real cool. Real earthy type sister.
Cool.
You know. So, but yeah, we got it popping in here, and more people are coming in. And Dr. Vibe, I think he was having a little technical problem, so he's coming. He'll be right back. Have you you met Dr. Vibe?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a good brother too, from Canada.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of Canadians in here. Natasha's from Canada, Jamaican Canadian. Luke and Robert's from Canada. So
okay.
So we have a nice imprint in Canada.
Cool.
So, but yeah. So this show is Dr. Vibe from Canada. I'm from Los Angeles, so it's we're sharing our different point of views.
Cool.
From both. So, yeah. So yeah, he was trying to catch a seat, and then it wasn't letting him in. So he probably just refreshed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's giving me a hard time too. I had to do all kind of swiping and all kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, last week I couldn't get my guest in. It was my pastor. We just couldn't get him going, so we'll try to get him in next week.
Okay.
So that should be interesting. So while we got some time before the show actually start, put one in the chat room if you guys had a good weekend. Put two if it hasn't been as good. Let's see. Okay, Danny had a good weekend. Maya said 1.5. Robert, no, 1.5 as well. Oh, what's up, D? D is in here. D is in on the Facebooks. Have y'all? Let me ask this question. Here he is. Have y'all done that Facebook revamp? Y'all like it? I don't like it, man. It looks I'm confused, man. One, Chris is in here. What's up, Chris? Oh, and please like and share. Like and share. Get the word out. So, what do you think about as a boxer? What do you think about Roy Jones versus Mike Tyson?
Woo. Man, look here.
Mm-hmm.
You saw them videos of Mike Tyson?
Mm-hmm. I love Roy, but I don't know about that one. Yeah.
Man, look. Mike Tyson will beat every heavyweight right now that's fighting.
I agree. He saw the landscape and said, "Let me put me back in, coach."
And Deontay Wilder was talking crazy about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Mike, if Mike didn't have the psychological issues he had, nobody would have beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
Like, nobody would have. I love Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis. They wouldn't have had a chance against Mike Tyson if he didn't have the psychological issues he had.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's just like an exhibition and they not going to be going full throttle, because the way dude looking, that's a problem right there.
Yeah. And
Mike Tyson body look like he 35 years old.
Yeah, he looks great. He looks absolutely great. And his hand speed is there, and man, he looks good, dude. I'm like, man.
Hey, man, boxing is not football. It is, it's not one of them, like, if you stay in shape and you don't take a lot of abuse, you can still fight, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Roy, but when Roy's athleticism started declining, he was not the same boxer.
Roy Jones is a natural light middleweight.
Right.
Like, you talking about a man who naturally 70 pounds heavier than you.
Right.
I don't care how good you is. You know what I'm saying? And you absolutely right. Like, Roy Jones, like I tell people all the time, it's just like LeBron James or Allen Iverson. Like, all Allen Iverson did when he lost a step, he won the same player.
Right.
LeBron James, he just relying on his physicality. He never truthfully learned the footwork and everything he needed to be Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or like one of them type of players. Like, Kevin Durant could play for 15 more years the way he plays the game. You understand?
Yeah, he got the skills. Yeah.
Roy Jones, as soon as that that age started coming and he lost a little here and there, he was getting beat by B-level fighters.
Yeah, man. It got embarrassing. Like, he was just getting worked by everybody.
Yeah. So
yeah. And me, man,
I don't know, man.
And I have so much respect for the fight game. And just so that people know, we're not doing the fight podcast. We're just waiting for Dr. Vibe to get situated. So we'll be doing our show as soon as Dr. Vibe comes in. But since we here,
that's gonna be woo.
Yeah.
I hope they just
they just playing around.
There, man, just hit each other a couple times and make it look good. Because if they really gonna fight, man, Mike Tyson might hurt that boy real bad.
Yeah, it could be very ugly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm open. I think they said they're gonna have headgear and stuff. So
okay.
So
yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please have headgear.
And I like Roy. I like Roy when he was at his peak. he was fun, entertaining to
I love
watch.
him.
But the minute when he got knocked out by Antonio Tarver, he was never right after that.
Twice.
Mm-hmm. I remember that knockout. Like I remember that like it was yesterday. It was just like wow. And then he wasn't even seeing punches anymore. Like it was just he was just getting, and Glenn Johnson knocked him out, and it was bad, man. I was like, please stop, just stop. But I wondered though, like it seemed like for so long he was so worried about his, not losing a fight, and then it just seemed like once he lost, he didn't care no more. It was just like, well, if I get beat with it,
Yeah.
because it seemed like he always curated his career where he wouldn't, But it was But yeah, he was a good one.
And that's also why people they can say whatever they want to, man. But that boy to call himself Money, he stayed in tip top condition, and he didn't let himself decline like that.
Yeah.
And he changed the whole way he fought. At one point in his career, when his hands started breaking, he went from being a explosive, fast, offensive fighter to a straight defensive mastermind.
Oh yeah, that guy was amazing.
Yeah.
He's still doing his thing too. He still got it. So
yeah. So man, I don't want to see it really, to be honest with you, because I don't think none of them. Because even Shannon Briggs, like all of them older dudes, talking about they want to fight Mike, man. See, like people don't understand, bro. Like that shit ain't. You can't just turn it on and off once you get in there, and you get hit a couple times. And the way he looked hitting them pads. Bernard Hopkins even talked about it. He said the pad man is like this, holding the pads. He's scared to get hit with it.
And he pro. He's been doing it for years. So when he like that, that speaks volumes, man. But it's good to see though, because we grew up with him being the dude. He was that dude for the longest, man. He was like, for people who wasn't around for that era, it's hard to explain what Mike Tyson was at that time. Like he was he was mythical, It was exciting.
He was larger than life. He was larger than life. Like for people to really comprehend, we talking about a dude that was 19 years old that had 38-year-old men like peeing on themselves, afraid of him.
Right.
And he, like, we talking about 38-year-old men who are professionally trained fighters, and he was beating them in like 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Putting them to sleep.
Yes. In dramatic fashion.
Fights wasn't even lasting 3 rounds, man.
Yeah.
19 years old doing that to grown men like that.
Yeah.
And what the person is from the outside looking in doesn't understand about it is that the level of skill and athleticism that he had to be able to have the type of fighting style that he had, the peekaboo style, and for him to be able to incorporate the head movement, the footwork he had, and Mike Tyson is like, I'm 5'10" and a half. Mike Tyson is like an inch taller than me. And he was knocking out dudes that was 6'5", 6'6", 6'5", 250 pounds.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And
he
pros.
was like, I'm talking about like putting them to sleep.
All right. Good pros. Like guys who were good. Yeah. Yeah. Who, people don't understand, like, when it comes to boxing, it's like that skill level and then having done it for so long matters so much. And there's a lot of great young guys who just don't have the experience. But once you get that experience, man, yeah. Dr. Vibe.
There we go.
Let's do this.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Great.
Sorry for the delay. Always having fun with, I won't even go there, with streaming devices. Just leave it at that. Okay.
Dr.
Ready to
DrAmirah,
start?
Dr. DrAmirah may join us later or not. She's traveling, so she said she's going to try to come in. But so we have DeWayne here.
Hello, DeWayne. Long time no chat. You good?
Yes, sir.
All right. We ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's bring it. Let's quiet on the set. And thanks to Chris, Natasha, Maya, Danny Redwine, Robert, and Luke. We're going to get started in 20 seconds. Here we go. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Check it out. But this isn't a Dr. Vibe show, so I messed up. I'm human. This is something you have to check out every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, called Black Man from the north of the 49th. This is me. And to my on my screen to my right, Black Man from south of the 49th, Kente Ferguson. What is going on, Kente?
Man, I'm doing really good, man. I had a great weekend with my family. Been working on a lot of stuff, and just this is a great way to end it right here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you to the Get Vocal platform for highlighting our conversation as the anchor, or one of the anchors. I think the anchor, probably the anchor, since we're the last program block on their Soul Sundays. And we're going to make sure we bring it. We have a special friend with us tonight. DeWayne, what is going on, DeWayne?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good to have you. What's been going on with you? What's going on?
Oh, man. Continuing the marathon, free Wayne Williams. Not only still continuing to work on that case in the Atlanta child murders and the fight for freedom for Wayne Williams, but also now involved with another case that I will be bringing a lot to the public awareness about these individuals that were brought under a RICO conspiracy indictment from a street organization called Growth and Development. And it's commonly known also as the Gangster Disciples, but it's a street gang that started out with a lot of street activity, and they ended up changing their whole message and getting involved in community activism and things of that nature. And right now I'm representing a brother by the name of Mangwaro Siddiqui Israel, commonly known as Brother Is, who's facing a 30-year federal charge in a RICO conspiracy. And basically they're criminalizing a whole bunch of men for crimes that they had nothing to do with. So it's something that is very near and dear to me because of the fact that we're dealing in a situation where legal precedents get set to criminalize certain segments of society, and the language that gets used are things that we need to be made aware of, you know. So I won't go too far down that road, but I definitely want to talk to y'all tonight about that. And I'll be definitely in touch with Kente, and I'll probably be tagging you in the posts and things of that nature.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just much appreciated. Go ahead, Kente.
And also, we'll bring this back around. Is there any way that if somebody wants to give money, is there some sort of fund or anything to help this, or have you started one yet? Or is there some way that if somebody hears the story and they want to do it in that way, is there something set up yet?
Actually, there is. I'm not, because this is something that I've just been brought into the mix, and we haven't had a formal meeting on it yet. But there's a website that's already built, and again, like whenever you guys want, I could bring not only myself but the other sister that's working on the case with me, and we could bring all of that to you guys, so that you guys will be well aware and will know how to support all the efforts moving forward.
Wonderful. And I just want to say, and Please add if I leave something out about Brother DeWayne. DeWayne is a hip hop artist,
Yes.
a boxing trainer,
Yes.
an activist, right?
Yes, that's a fact.
Author
Yes.
and filmmaker.
Yes.
And have I left anything out?
Few things. Dad.
A few
Oh,
things. You go.
Most important, the dad.
Pops,
But,
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Also, I'm in the works with talking to some people about actually doing a tell-all docu-series about the Atlanta child murders as well.
Excellent.
So it'll be the first time that something of this magnitude has been done. That will be as groundbreaking as it will be, because it won't be something that we'll be telling down the middle. We'll be absolutely telling the whole story as to why people should know that Wayne Williams was conspired against from day one. Even before he knew that he was a suspect, it was already in the mix. So there are things that myself and others have uncovered that he wasn't even aware of up until recently, like the last 48 hours. So it's an exciting time.
I remember, and this shows you how important it is to tell our stories and having media that reflects the truth. I was talking to someone, a Caucasian gentleman, and I was telling him about Wayne Williams, and he was saying, I think that man did it. I mean, I saw Mindhunters, and they were saying, and I'm sitting there like, it's a Hollywood TV show, bro. That's not even like, but that's where they get their information from, right? Is from Hollywood. So they said on Mindhunters, so it got to be true, right? So or even the podcast that just came out a couple years ago, where I met you from it as well. So it's important for us to tell our own stories, and that's one thing me and Dr. Vibe try to do. So
if the general public, if it was the general consensus amongst the general public, how important having our own media outlets and being able to control our own narratives truthfully is, we would understand so many different things, spiritually, psychologically, mentally, across the board about ourselves,
Yeah. And so tonight, man, we have a great topic, and this is something that I've been wanting to do this with you, especially because it's something that's current, right? That we're talking about, but it's something that goes way back as well. And in order for us to really explain to people what we're talking about, you have to give some history as well. And so the main topic is false or fake activism. And we had a really nice lengthy conversation earlier, and we were talking about how the average person who's well-meaning, especially in our community, they see these people on television that been given to us, and they assume they like what they're saying because most of the things sound good, but they don't understand where they come from, what they really truly represent, and what the end game is. And there's been a long history of the powers that be giving us our leaders who don't necessarily reflect our best interests. And we talked about even going back to Marcus Garvey, and I really wanted to, if you want to do that as a starting point.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think it was, I'm not sure whether it was Karl Marx or Vladimir Lenin, but the tenets of communism have an origin in Zionism. And one of them was quoted as saying, we will control our enemies by controlling their leaders.
I believe it was Lenin.
Yeah, Lenin. I thought it was, but I wasn't sure. Something that people don't know about Vladimir Lenin is that he was half Jewish, just as Karl Marx was, So going into the whole Russian Revolution, it was all a setup to instill communism in that region of the world and to usurp the Romanov dynasty, right? So if we understood these methods of propaganda, and taking the conversation into what you and I talked about earlier with Marcus Garvey, one of the common misconceptions about Marcus Garvey is that he became this arrogant person, and once he got to the position that he got in leadership, that his fall was based on the fact that he was arrogant and egotistical. And truthfully, what most people don't know is that he had first, he was betrayed by his own driver, which people don't really know that. Secondly, the person who was working on his ship, that I forget the name of the ship right now, it's slipping my mind, but the ship that was going to take the people from America to Liberia, he was purposely breaking the ship so that it would cost Marcus Garvey these enormous repair prices, right? And then third, the biggest thing that people don't know about what happened to Marcus Garvey is that Haile Selassie, who was Ethiopian ruler, basically was positioned globally to be able to nullify the numbers that the UNIA had amassed. So what people need to think about is how did, in that particular time period, we talking about the late 1800s, correct?
Right.
How did people in Jamaica learn of who Emperor Haile Selassie was? There wasn't radio, there wasn't television, so how did all of these people in Jamaica learn about Haile Selassie and him become the emperor and him be the Lion of Judah, the return of Judah? And what people don't seem to get or realize is that Jamaica, where Rastafari grew so rapidly, is the home of Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Right.
So this was deliberately done to confuse the movement. And this has happened so many times, even with movements that were created, right, and funded by people outside of our community.
Right.
When you look at the beginning of the great Dr. Martin Luther King's career in activism, he, along with Rosa Parks, are implanted in the middle of the civil rights movement that had already begun in the Mississippi Delta with Medgar Evers and Fannie Lou Hamer. Right? In comes this young, little-known, charismatic preacher from Atlanta, right, who knows how to give these soul-stirring messages, and all of a sudden, the civil rights movement is being led by this guy, and nobody ever asked, okay, who are you? Where did you come from? And I mean, he's a product of Morehouse College. Morehouse was named after John Morehouse, who was the doctor for the Rockefeller family.
Right.
Spelman was named after Spelman Rockefeller, who was John Rockefeller's first wife.
Right.
So when we get into what has truthfully happened to us in so many different instances, we have always had puppets thrown in front of us that truthfully are there to just be talking heads, but no real action that would be anything that would be a semblance of a real solution gets taken.
Right. some that I would also direct people to, and you tell me if you agree, is there was this great man who passed away in 2012 named Steve Coakley.
Yes.
And brother Steve Coakley, his work, everybody should study it. And a lot of people do study it, even outside of our community too. They don't always quote him correctly or give him his credit, but he did a lot of the groundwork on exposing our fake leaders in our communities. And you know, and he started out on the inside.
Yes.
And then he came to find out that the people around him wasn't what they reported to be. So I mean, we could do a whole show on Steve Coakley's work. But he's somebody I often talk about. I mean, he's someone I would love to do a documentary on, because his work is so seminal to our having the knowledge that we have now about how things really truly work. And going back to Marcus Garvey, you had people like A. Philip Randolph, who I always, you know, as a young person, always saw him as, you know, this great man. But then you find out more and more about him, and you kind of have to challenge your thought process about him. You know, A. Philip Randolph, and a lot of those guys, you know, really worked to undermine Marcus Garvey. And for those who don't know who Marcus Garvey was one of the greatest human beings that ever lived. You know, and I won't just say black people, like one of the greatest human beings that ever lived. And he was such a phenomenal leader. And if you think about the time in which he existed, what he was able to create, you know, from the Black Star Line, from having, you know, ships. You can't have ships now and be black. You know what I'm saying? This brother was, you know, and Jamaican. Shout out Dr. Vibe. He was a Jamaican, and he was a just this tremendous leader, and scared the hell out of the system, you know. And they worked extra hard to bring him down. And you notice they don't talk about him either. There's no movies about him. I don't rarely see any documentaries. I don't even know if there's a documentary about Marcus Garvey. They almost want you. They don't even want you to know this brother existed. You know. So, but anyway, I wanted to get that in there, and I really believe that in the modern era, the Marcus Garvey movement taught them a lesson about we can't let homegrown leaders grow up like Nat. I mean, they learned it from Nat Turner as well as you know, we can go back even farther than that. But in the modern era, I would say Marcus Garvey was like a big turning point, and that's when they really ramped up the notion of we'll give you who your leader is, and that leader will then, you know, they'll do some things that sound cool, you know, kind of spit in the eye of the man, but not really.
Right.
You know, so let me ask this question. When we talk about some of the leaders that we, you know, and this might hurt some feelings tonight because some people that we've grown to love, you know, you may think differently or at least challenge the way you think about them tonight.
Yeah. Do
you feel like most of the just in general, the false leaders, do they know they're false? Let's start there. Or they're being puppets and they don't realize to the degree of they're being used. We'll talk in a general sense.
Some of them aren't. Mm-hmm. You know, some of them start with pure intentions. Malcolm X, you know, Malcolm X's biggest problem is he was really foolish and he really thought that he was really doing something that was going to be beneficial for his people. Mm-hmm. Right. You have certain members of the Black Panther Party that really were legit. Fred Hampton was really legit. He was a 19-year-old kid that was so powerful and so intelligent that he had actually grown men leaving street gangs and joining the Black Panther Party. And even he was able to even bring forth unification amongst rival gangs in Chicago. Mm-hmm. You know, Bunchy Carter, yeah. You know, was another one. And what people need to understand, and like you said, people will get their feelings hurt, but I could fight, so I don't really care, you know, how people feel about it. But Huey P. Newton was a plant from the very beginning. The man who gave Huey P. Newton the philosophy that he ended up pushing was a man named Richard Aoki, who was an FBI informant and a CIA asset. And he actually funded the initial guns and everything for the Black Panther Party, you know. And they had funding from special interest groups that, you know, tied into a lot of the mind control mechanisms that were coming out of the Bay Area at that particular time. You had the Church of Satan, which started in 1966, just as the Black Panther Party. You had the Process Church, MK Ultra, the gay rights movement, or what we now know to be LBGT. You know, all of these things were coming out of the same area. Charles Manson had roots. Who Charles Manson was a CIA asset. Jim Jones had roots as well in that area. He was a CIA asset. You know, so everything that took place in that particular time period, you know, it was basically a setup, really. And what it was doing was it was completely and totally obliterating all the momentum that had been garnered for the civil rights movement. Right? So even though what MLK started as, he started as a plant, but once he got to a certain point, he was no longer willing to be used in the way that he had been being used. And if you listen to, if you read some of his last writings and you listen to some of his last speeches, he was starting to talk about things like reparations.
Right.
You know, he was starting to talk against integration.
Right.
You know, so the Black Panther Party was all the way over here, and it was a complete and total polar opposite of what the civil rights movement entailed, which at that particular time seemed like it made so much sense to the younger generation. So what happens is the wisdom that gets garnered in this generation, right, can no longer have a connection with this radicalism over here. So now it completely and totally severs any kind of diplomacy that could take place that could actually be something that would be beneficial for the next generation to actually have elders that they could come get good sound advice from. And that's why you saw so many, when you look back at it, stupid things that were done by so many people that were connected to the Black Panther Party. And another person who needs to be noted definitely as a big problem with the Black Panthers was Eldridge Cleaver. You know, because he came in, and as soon as he came in, he started something called the Peace and Friendship Movement. You know, in my second book, Red Pill Alchemy, well, actually in both of my books, I always explain the connections to Zionism. And they call Judaism the religion of Abraham, and Abraham was the one man with the three wives. Right. The three women is always a three-witch symbolism that they show when you look at Charlie's Angels, when you look at the Witches of Eastwick, when you look at films in that regard, they show this symbolism. And with the Black Panther Party, you had Elaine Brown, Angela Davis, and Kathleen Cleaver, along with Eldridge Cleaver. Right. You know, who was that was the main infiltration agent in the three women. Angela Davis helped set up and probably killed the most powerful person that helped build the military within the Black Panthers, who was the Soledad brother, George Jackson. Right. George Jackson and his little brother were basically killed. And Angela Davis had a huge hand in what took place with what happened with them.
It's interesting. Angela Davis, just as a side note, has resurfaced in a way where, you know, they're pumping her back up again. And I see a lot of sisters who they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like Angela Davis, and I'll be like, you know, like they don't know, right? They just don't know.
Right.
You know, I'm like, you know, they don't even know about what she says publicly that flies in the face of our community as well. So, I mean, you don't have to just take our words for it. You can listen to her words. She's not somebody that you would want to be like, you know.
Correct.
So, but I know a lot of sisters, they love Angela Davis, and that they think about that Wanted poster, you know, and it's, you know, that's that image signed by J. Edgar Hoover, by the way, that Wanted poster. So, you know, and I always tell people, man, you know, I feel for people who, you know, they work hard, you know, they have children, they want to be political, they want to be pro-black, but then they don't really know, you know, they see Black Lives Matter, and it seems like that's the movement, right? To get to hook your wagon to and stuff like that. And then, but then you have, is she like Candace? Is she like Candace Owens? That's funny. Javier just asked, is Angela Davis like Candace Owens?
Way worse.
Yeah.
Way worse.
Yeah.
She got people murdered.
Right. And then Candace Owens, to her credit, if you want to give her credit, she doesn't masquerade who she is. Like, you know exactly who she is and what she's about. So there's no confusion there about who she is. Whereas I would say someone like an Angela Davis, there's so much distortion of who she is and what she really truly is about. So, you know, but that's it. I mean, that's a good question though, Javier. You know, it's a good way to think, but it's almost like people like the Candace Owens, who I can't stand. One thing I appreciate about them though is the fact that they're in the light of who they are. So, you know, there's, like I said, there's the confusion that's not there. So, whereas these other folks that are given to us, they really do a lot of fraudulent things that make you feel like they're a part of, you know, some sort of black movement. And should we be looking at, just as a side note, the ones that didn't survive the 60s versus the ones that survived and still are going? Should we be looking at that as some sort of gauge on possibly their authenticity?
Definitely. When you look at for instance, if we go back to the Black Panthers, you know, shout out to the sister, divine love to Asada Shakur. You know, when you see that they still have a death warrant for her, even though it's been proven that she wasn't the person that committed the crime that she was accused of, right? And she ended up being able to get away. By the way, who, had it been up to Reverend Al Sharpton, tried to set her up, and she almost told him where she was, and had she done that, she would be in prison or dead right now. But she was wise enough not to let Al Sharpton know where she was, because Al Sharpton was the FBI informant.
It's been proven too, by the way.
You know, it's been proven, you know, by a few others, you know, as well. It's been proven. I mean, Elaine Brown basically admitted that she was trained by a CIA handler. You know, to show people, even from interpersonal knowledge of things like this that I know, my granddad is Jimi Hendrix's first cousin, and Jimi Hendrix was not a heroin addict. He was poor. You know, he was poisoned, and there were 3 women in his life, and a man named Mike Jeffrey, who was his manager, and Jimmy was trying to get away from this guy, Mike Jeffrey. And basically different things happened. Like, one thing that happened was Jimmy was kidnapped and thrown in the trunk of a car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a fake rescue was made, and this guy, Mike Jeffrey, who was his manager and was also an MI6 agent. MI6 is British intelligence. You know, Mike Jeffrey was an MI6 agent, and he staged the whole kidnapping of Jimmy, basically to say that, these mafia guys, they're so connected in the music industry, and you need somebody like me to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his Jimmy's fiance, Monica Danneman, you know, who supposedly left him and came back or whatever, for all practical purposes, this is DeWayne Hendrix saying this, I think she's the person who poisoned him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then he also had 2 other women that were kind of like his sexual witches.
Mm-hmm.
That were around him, that were learning all of the nuances of who he was as a man, what drugs he did like, what drugs he didn't like, what alcohol he liked to drink, so on and so forth. And some of the things that people thought that happened to Jimmy that were based on him being a drug addict were completely and totally false. So one particular time he had to leave a stage show because PCP was put in his drink. While he was backstage, you know. So these are the type of things that, we don't seem to go do our due diligence to research and find out about.
And these are all verifiable too, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, as a Hendrix, I'm the person who ended up bringing this to my family.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, a whole generation and a half removed of his untimely demise, I'm the person who basically had to educate my family on what happened to our family member for real. You know, so.
I got a question.
Yes.
So DeWayne, question for you, and thank you for the thought process and the information. Compare Black activism in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. To Black activism of today. What are the differences? Is it better today? Is it less than today? Because we're in another time right now where Black activism is out there. It's really hard right now. But you have, from my impression, you have a great knowledge of the activism of the 1960s, which was the last real time, at least in North American society, Black activism had something to fight for. They were fighting for civil rights.
Right.
Can you compare from where you sit Black activism of the 1960s to Black activism in 2020?
It's no difference because it's all misdirected and it's all misguided. And if you load your weapons and you don't aim them at the right person, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know, so the names and faces change and the methodology changes, but the playbook is still the same. We're going to make sure we give a platform to the person that we're controlling, and we're going to make that person the visible person, right? So that the people who actually are doing things that are potentially beneficial and have the right vision and the right mindset to actually be able to affect change, we're going to make sure that we give a greater audience to the one that we have control of.
Mm-hmm. Controlled opposition.
So let me ask you, especially for 2020, what direction do you feel Black activists should be aiming at, and what are they aiming at right now? From where you sit, what are they aiming at right now compared to what they should be aiming at?
Great question.
Okay. And that's a good question. And these things become layered answers, right? So one of the things that's very important is so imperative for people to understand is that we're trying to fight a physical war that's not our war to fight. We are trying to have revolution when we are in the time of revelation, right?
Say that again. That's a knowledge bomb right there. Drop it, brother.
Right. We are at a time where we are seeing a system of oppression destroy itself from the inside out. Right. So when we learn of all of these heinous things that the Clintons have been involved with, when we learn the things like Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, Mother Teresa, and Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, all of these people were involved with international child trafficking and human trafficking for years and years and years and years. When we begin to see these sorts of things where these iconic people, you know, are being exposed, and they're not being exposed by Jesse Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Right,
you understand? They're not being exposed by people from our community. They're being exposed by other people that look like them.
Right.
You understand? So we're trying to engage in a war and trying to be involved with universal karma that's not upon us. So sometimes you have to step out of the way and let certain things take place. And you just watch the show. You understand? So
okay, I'm just going to interrupt you. That's a very interesting point right there. So here's a question for you. You have an upcoming election in the United States in November. I live in Canada. We're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what you just said right now, do you advocate Black Americans voting in the next election, or just stay back and watch America do what it's doing to itself?
All right, my real answer is that I don't vote, right? Because I know that elect has an S in front of it.
Select.
You understand? It's a selection process, right? And see, what has happened is that, excuse the language, but this shit show that we've been watching for so long is at an unprecedented point, because now you have to make a decision between the quote unquote sexist, racist Trump and the senile pedophile
right.
who's also equally as racist.
Right. The people don't realize that he has a long history of it.
Correct. Joseph Biden has taken place. He's taken part in legislation that has been passed that has criminalized so many people from our community.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the person who actually authored what was called the Omnibus Anti-Terrorism Act, which was the precursor for 9/11, which was a means to be able to label anybody that they decided to label a terrorist in America, right? And now what has happened, to take it a step further, they have created another precedence with something called the BIE, which is the Black Identity Extremists. So now with the people who take a stance towards militants and things of that nature, you could very easily be caught up in this particular indictment, in which I know personally some people from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a group of brothers that called themselves Guerrilla Mainframe. They were some former veterans, and they started a group that was basically teaching survival skills, right? Weapons training and physical fitness to a group, a grassroots group in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they got infiltrated by that dude named Micah X, who supposedly killed those police officers in Dallas, which was a fake false flag incident, right? He supposedly went into this apartment building and they sent a robot into the apartment and blew up the apartment and all of this stuff that they put on the news. I was in the Dallas. I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area at that particular time. I knew people that lived in that part of Dallas, and none of that stuff that they said was going on was actually going on. Right? And the reason it becomes important is because this particular guy, Micah X, come to find out that he had ties to he was a person who infiltrated this group, and one of the brothers, a man named Rakim Bergalore, came under this indictment, which was called the BIE. He eventually beat the charges, but all he did was went on his Facebook page and he basically said, you know, he commended the brother for taking action against a tyrannical oppressive force, which was the police in Dallas, Texas. The next thing he knows, he's getting waking up at his home and the feds is kicking his door at 5 o'clock in the morning. You know,
the BIE is interesting because that happened and people kind of underplayed the importance of that. And that's one of the biggest things that we just kind of, you know, I mean, like people were like, oh, that's a thing, but they didn't realize how big of a thing that is.
How big of a deal it is.
Yeah.
Right. See, the people who set these precedents, they already understand things that we don't know about ourselves spiritually. Right? And what we don't understand is we don't understand time. So in my book, Supreme Science, I explained that the people that were born in my generation from 1960 to 1980 were called Generation X. And then from 1980 to 2000 was Generation Y. And from 2000 to 2020 was Generation Z. And that's why they gave us a film, World War Z. Right? And in that film, these zombies woke up and started killing everybody. You know, so much so that they were being triggered by music.
Right.
If you remember in the film,
yeah,
and the only place that was prepared for the quote unquote zombie apocalypse in the film was Jerusalem. They had built the wall around Jerusalem, if you remember. And once they started playing the music that was supposedly celebratory music, the zombies learned how to climb up each other's backs. They climbed over the wall and they destroyed the village, if you remember that. You know, that was all metaphorical, of course, but what that was saying was basically that their rule and their dominance on this planet is over.
And
you know,
and just as a side note, Max Brooks, who wrote it, who's Mel Brooks' son, I've heard him out of his mouth talk about his ties to the military and to the government and how they called him in to do scenarios and stuff and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, I mean, and this ain't like some kind of conspiracy theory. This is out of his own mouth. So, you know, sometimes they tell the truth right to your face, you know?
Yeah, and for the listening audience, so they know, I entered the United States Air Force in 1994. I'm about to give myself a whole nother 10 years. 1994. And upon my first job classification, I had to pass what's called a TSSBI, Top Secret Single Scope Background Investigation. So that was for me to be able to even enter into the military to work my first duty station. And then by the time I was out of the military in 4 years, I had amassed what's called a TSSCI clearance. You understand? So I'm aware of things from, like you said, an insider's point of view on a lot of different levels. There are things that I was privy to in the military that if I said in any type of public forum, I'm going Leavenworth for. You understand? So I'm definitely consciously aware of what is done and how it's done. What I suggest that everybody watch and do is watch a film called Wag the Dog.
Great movie.
You know, that to me, if people watch that film, they will understand so many different things about propaganda, and they will understand so many things about false flags and things that get perpetuated right in front of our eyes in the news media that, I mean, are complete and total falsehoods and fabrications, and they get perpetuated in front of us because there are certain precedents that always have to be set for us to accept the agenda. You understand? It's very important that people be mindful. I say this to people all the time. I have no religion, but I study all religions. And my favorite passage in the Quran, it says Shaitan, which is how they say Satan. Shaitan will make evil fair seem. And what that means is that the devil, metaphorical devil, will create a mechanism, right, that will make you do their bidding for them. You go along with the agenda that they create for you willingly. They make evil fair seem. You know, so we could talk about the women's lib movement. We could talk about the civil rights movement. We could talk about the Black Panther Party. We could talk about Jesse Jackson and Operation Push. We could talk about all of these different things, and I could just systematically break it down to you and show you what was done and how it was done and the purpose for it.
Let me give another thing to add to it, as far as references, because people always want to references. I know you know about this. Most people know about the COINTELPRO,
right,
and the revelations that came out and stuff, but very little people know about the Black Desk, and that in the interview with DrAmirah Perry, who was an operative of, he was a Black operative of this thing called the Black Desk,
right,
where his job was basically to infiltrate Black organizations. And we're not talking about like an organization like the Panthers where you could say there's some kind of military type thing. We're talking about community organizations, people that all they want to do is teach Black people how to write and to, act and stuff. And he famously he claimed that he was the one that burnt down the Watts Writers workshop. If you're from out here and you're of a certain age, you know how important that was to the community. Right. And he gave this interview talking about how, it's creepy as hell, especially if you don't understand anything about it. And it's on YouTube. It's all over the place. So you can see this interview with this guy named DrAmirah Perry, where he's breaking down, and that guy disappeared right after that interview. So, so we don't know what happened to that brother. We can only speculate, but he breaks it down. So
another cat is Miri Baraka.
Okay.
And right now, his son is actually, I want to say he's a mayor or state representative or something like that in New Jersey. The cat even had a song with I think he did a song with Lauryn Hill or DrAmirah or something like that. But his dad, Amiri Baraka, was a FBI. He was a rat. Another one is Julio Butler, right there in LA. And he ended up being involved He was involved with one of those real big black churches out there, like Dr. Price's church, or one of them real big churches.
Yeah.
But he was a FBI informant, and he helped get a lot of the good brothers that was in the Panthers jammed up in prison time.
Yeah.
You know, something else that I'm bringing into the mix in my next book that people need to be aware of is something called U.S. PATCON, which is United States Patriot Conspiracy. And this is another COINTELPRO-like program that was designed for Caucasians. Guess who was involved in U.S. PATCON? A man named Timothy McVeigh.
Okay.
You know,
it's deep, man.
So, yeah.
You know what I noticed though, and you can speak on this, is that it seems like bloodlines are very important when it comes to a lot of this. When you start looking at the connections, you see a lot of it connected on all sides through bloodlines.
Yeah.
And I remember every once in a while they'll kind of tell you that Obama is related to Brad Pitt, or you know what I'm saying, or who was he, Dick Cheney or something.
Yes.
And then you find out that a lot of these people who are supposed to be activists, when you look at their bloodline, they're connected somehow, they're related somehow to people you would be kind of surprised. And so what's the whole thing with the bloodlines?
Basically, when you get into a lot of these different things, you have to understand that in ancient times, right, we learned that sometimes a pharaoh may marry his sister, right? Something that people need to know: two children coming out of the same womb, that's something different. But if they had the same dad and different moms, it was looked at completely and totally different in those times. But what has happened is a lot of the things that we once did in ancient times are being used and perpetuated against us, and they have been made to look evil or look bad, while the people who try to or strive to keep power, they use these principles, right? So the whole deal with the bloodlines is really very simple when you understand that, like you talked about COINTELPRO, right? What was the main tenet of COINTELPRO? To do what?
To stop the Black Messiah.
Right. Stop the rise of a Black Messiah, right?
Mm-hmm.
The word Messiah comes from the Hebrew word Mashiach.
Okay.
Or Mesa, and it means anointed, right? And in ancient Kemet, where this word first existed as MAS, a Christ Messiah was one from a royal bloodline, right? That was anointed.
Okay.
Right? So when we talk about what is actually being conveyed and what it truthfully means is quite simple. When we see the son of, for instance, LeBron James, right? And we see his son is playing high school basketball and everything else, and we see the things that he's doing. It's no big surprise to people. Why? Because they know who his father is.
Right.
And then a thing that is taught in religion is that to say, when you see me, you see the Father. Right? If you remember the Lion King, when Simba was out in the wilderness and Rafiki came to him and he said, you know my dad? He said, did you know my dad? He said, no, I know your dad. Right? And he was trying to tell Simba, he told Simba to go look in the water. And he said, I don't see nothing. He said, look again. When he looked again, he saw Mufasa's reflection in him. Right? So this is just ancient spiritual teachings being perpetuated in a way that it's now being used in a disagreeable manner, and it's being used against us.
Okay.
You understand? It's very important, though, for people to understand the depth of Barack Hussein. And
that's the one's gonna hurt.
I mean, this dude's mother was a CIA asset. The man who they say is his father was a CIA asset. His granddad, his mother's father, was a CIA agent and cousin to George Bush Sr. His stepdad was a man named Lolo Santoro, who was basically the commandant of the East Asian hit squad for the CIA. He was a mass murderer. You know, this is his stepdad. You know,
yeah. So when you look into that stuff, man, it's eye opening. Yeah.
Right, and when you just get into like what's transpiring right now and what is starting to manifest, like all of this stuff is coming back on these people because of George Bush Sr. and his evil deeds, really.
And he ran the CIA too. For those who don't remember or know that, he ran the CIA. Yeah. Right. And had ties to not only the Atlanta child murders, but also the situation in Mena, Arkansas, as well as the Franklin cover up. If you go back, his name is throughout all of that. So you know.
Yeah. The Boys Town, Nebraska, the Franklin cover up, in which all of these children were being ritually abused and raped.
And this is fact. This is not conspiracy theory. This is facts.
Right. Also, the Oakland County child murders that took place in North Fox Island outside of Detroit. The abduction of what's the kid's name? Who was the paper boy? Johnny Gosh.
Johnny Gosh.
He was the first person that was ever displayed on a milk carton.
Johnny Gosh case, yes. Check that out. Google that Johnny Gosh case. Some deep shit.
The Oklahoma City bombing, that building, the Alfred E. Murrah building, was bombed because of the paperwork. That was an ATF building, and the paperwork that would have implicated Bill Clinton, who was the president at the time, and George Bush Sr. was in that building. Right?
You want to hear something funny too is people don't realize about the connection with films, and they tell you what's going on in the movies. If you watch the X-Files movie, I don't know if you've ever seen that. The plot is an Oklahoma City type bombing, and it's to cover up a conspiracy. You know, like it's basically that right there. So, you know, it's very interesting when you see it, when you go back and watch that movie, you see like a lot of parallels. It's kind of you know, like I said, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. The Oklahoma City bombing was connected to that same program that I'm telling you about, U.S. PATCON, right? There were people that were connected to U.S. PATCON that were involved with the Centennial Olympic Park bombing that took place in '96 for the Atlanta Olympics.
Right, and they just made that stupid movie.
The same people were connected to the Atlanta child murders. They were connected to Ruby Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were connected to Waco, Texas,
Right.
right?
And it's not
People
hard to
have
make the
to,
connections. If you
yeah,
know what to look for, they're right
yeah,
there in front of your face.
yeah.
Yeah.
People have to get my next book to fully understand this, because I'm showing different films and everything else that was connected to it,
Mm-hmm.
that they show different things. But um, if have you seen The Kingsman?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the second one?
I didn't see the second one.
Okay,
I need to check that out then.
the second one is the one you need to see.
Mm.
But the villain is named Poppy. She's named Miss Poppy,
Mm.
right?
Okay.
Right? Poppy Bush. George
Okay.
Bush was named Poppy Bush
Right.
because George Bush set up the international infrastructure for heroin trafficking from Southeast Asia into America, as well as George Bush was in control of the cocaine that was coming into America via the Panama Canal, Miami, Manuel Noriega, uh, Pablo Escobar, the Ochoa family, all of these different names that people hear throughout history, they all basically had CIA undertones to them.
And what's the guy that Tom Cruise played in Mena,
Barry
Arkansas?
Seal.
Barry Seal.
Barry Seal.
Yeah. I mean, that's and that tells you right there. It's CIA connected. Bill Clinton,
Right.
Arkansas.
Right.
You know, it's right there. But you know, and it blows your mind if you have no idea. If you have no idea about any of this stuff, when you start seeing the connection, it definitely blows your mind. And they were training soldiers too there and all of that kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Now, before we say
the rebels, the Sandinista rebels in Nicaragua, which ended up being connected to the Iran Contras, which ended up being connected to Freeway Ricky Ross and Danilo Blandon, and the spread of crack cocaine throughout California. You gotta mention that part.
But check this out though. They made that movie with Tom Cruise, right? Talking about bloodlines. Do you know the director of that film's father was like one of the prosecutors on the case?
That doesn't surprise me.
And of course, the movie covers up a whole lot, right, you know, too. So it's crazy. And you know, and someone made the connection in an interview, and the look on his face, you know, when he was being asked. I mean, he played it off pretty well, but his initial look was like, "Oh, I didn't expect anybody to come up with that gem." You know, it was like during a press junket. Some press junket reporter made the connection and then brought it out there, and then while he was, you know, promoting the movie with Tom Cruise, and the look on his face was like, I don't think he expected anyone to make the connection between him and his father, but which was interesting. But so one of the things I would be remiss is to bring up, like, we have to talk
Black
about
Lives Matter and
NFAC, and I think it's very important to explain. And I really feel like I really feel like I want to do a documentary about this. Darren Seals and those brothers who were murdered gruesomely, and that gave birth to the Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of people have no idea about that whole history and what happened, and how, you know, I mean, once you start shedding that light, it puts a lot of things into perspective. But can you just kind of let's start off with the how the Darren Seals situation first was born out of over there in Ferguson.
Well, this is what I'll tell the people, you know, as a disclaimer from the beginning. I got a sister that I'm still trying to get to talk about this. And she just doesn't talk about it because she knew Darren. She knew the other brother that they killed, that they burned in the car. You know, she knew them very well. And that cat, Darren, man, he was just a good brother. He was just a young dude from the streets. And he was upset about what was happening in his hometown with the Mike Brown situation. What people need to know is that Black Lives Matter have been trying to insert itself ever since the Trayvon Martin incident. You know, they have been trying to insert themselves into the community ever since that incident. And what ended up happening was with the Mike Brown situation, it was perfect timing because there was a repeal on a legislation that was being proposed in which it was going to go against the news media being able to feed the American public propaganda and fake news.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks after that, the Mike Brown incident took place, right? And what people don't know about the whole situation with Mike Brown is that none of the people that you saw in the news media that was speaking up in Ferguson, Missouri were actually people that were from Ferguson, Missouri. They were all people that were paid infiltrators to come in and begin to push a narrative that was going to be the movement that ended up being what we see today as Black Lives Matter. You know, and Black Lives Matter from its very beginning was funded by George Soros. You know, a Jewish billionaire who basically sold out his own people.
Right.
If you do the whole research on him, he sold out his own people and got a lot of his own people murdered.
Right.
This is how sinister of an individual George Soros is. And he has basically destroyed whole countries. You know, and in this particular instance, what has come out is that a lot of the money that has been being garnered for Black Lives Matter has been going to Joseph Biden's run for president. A lot of money went to Bernie Sanders. I forget the actual name of the public relations company. You know, I be posting so much stuff, bro, but it's on my page. I could probably, go back and get you that name and you could speak on it maybe on a later date. But there's actually a public relations firm that's connected to Black Lives Matter that when you go to their page, they have a ticker that's showing the actual amount of money that they have collected, via their public relations platform. And at the time, this was last month when I looked, it was over $6 billion.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
This is the kind of money that they're collecting, and they're using these media incidents to do it, and they're using our emotions against us.
Mm-hmm.
So with the whole deal with Darren and what ended up taking place in Ferguson, Missouri, it was a means to be able to carry out a narrative in which they could always use this whole black versus white paradigm to blind us as to what's really going on in the world. And right now, we got a whole situation where, let me pull this up while I'm talking to y'all, because it just blew my mind when I saw it yesterday. But the governor for the state of California, I can't think of his name right now.
Gavin Newsom.
Right. Gavin Newsom is connected to a multi-billion-dollar investigation. It's a multi-billion-dollar investigation going into Gavin Newsom and his connection with a company from China that makes masks. I'm gonna pull it up real quick because when somebody sent it to me, I just could not believe it. It just blew my mind. But there's a actual investigation going into him right now and what he's been involved with.
He had a big scandal when he was the mayor of San Francisco, where he literally disappeared for like 3 days. No one knew where he was at, and then just reappeared.
Wow.
It's like I never thought he would be able to bounce back from that, because it was like a big. That's why he wasn't governor right away. He had to be lieutenant governor. But it's like no one ever brings that up.
Let me see if it has the name of the company, because I don't want to give any misinformation out. And this is the LA Times.
Mm-hmm.
It says Newsom's secretive $1 billion mass deal with Chinese automakers sparks bipartisan concern.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this whole coronavirus pandemic is a coup d'etat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this whole deal was basically set up to create a smokescreen in a political climate, a social anarchist climate, to get people in a mindset to where they would want to demand change.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I tell people, all the people that's paying attention, right? Joseph Biden was the vice president for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
In that 8-year time period, we saw Eric Garner, we saw Sandra Bland, we saw Corin Gaines, we saw Tamir Rice, we saw Trayvon Martin, we saw all of these murders, Mike Brown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over and over again, we saw all of these people get killed. Joseph Biden was a church mouse.
Mm-hmm. Didn't say shit.
You didn't hear him say nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of a sudden, he's running for president in 2020. Right?
Mm-hmm. Going to black churches and stuff.
We demand justice for Ahmaud Arbery. And people don't see the game.
Right.
Right? When it started coming out, people like myself started exposing the whole thing about the coronavirus and how they were actually blocking off entrances, the hospitals, to make it look like the hospitals were overwhelmed. They were actually breaking the law.
Right.
It's a HIPAA violation for you to film inside of a trauma unit.
Right.
They were actually breaking the law, right? Going inside there and filming inside trauma units and all of this sort of thing. People started exposing all of this. Mm-hmm. People started exposing all of the agenda with the coronavirus, how the CDC had already created a mechanism to show people how to label people as deaths of COVID-19, even though they weren't dying of COVID-19, and that the hospital would get an extra $100,000 to $200,000 for every death that was labeled. All of these different things started coming out, and all of the buzz from the coronavirus and all of the panic started dying. First thing they do, kill a nigga.
Right.
Put it in the news.
Right.
You know, and then not only did they kill Ahmaud, which that was done on 223, which is 322 backwards, which is the number of the skull and bones.
Mm-hmm.
322. Genesis 322, man has become like one of us to know good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the number that they use. Then right after that, the whole George Floyd thing, which the George Floyd thing was a straight, like that was all acting. That was a Masonic ritual that was taking place with George Floyd. The tattoo on his chest is the tattoo of a 32nd degree Mason. And the screaming out for mama and all that type of stuff, the death and rebirth at 33 to become a master Mason, that's what that was about.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the cameras, it was filmed on different days.
Mm.
The time code on the police body cam versus the time code on the surveillance camera, it was different days, bro.
Mm.
When they showed the different angles, and they showed from the back of the truck, the first initial filming where they showed the Asian guy right here in front of the camera, and they on the sidewalk, and they like, get off him, bro. Why y'all doing that to him? Mm-hmm. When they show from the back of the truck, you don't see those people over there on the sidewalk.
Mm. Wow.
So there was two different cameras that was filming this simultaneously. You would see the same thing real time of the people who were on the sidewalk saying, why y'all doing this to him? They actually had him down there on the ground. They yelled cut, reposition, put a dummy down there. That was a dummy. That's why it didn't have no hair on it. If you look at the surveillance video, George Floyd had hair when he was being arrested and he was being cuffed. When you look on the ground, he didn't have no hair. That's why it was police officers came and put him on a stretcher. It wasn't paramedics. When you ever seen the paramedics not hit somebody with the EKG, do CPR and different things to try to say they like, all they did was like flip him over and did like this and then threw him on the gurney. And they had their guns on and everything, bro. That was law enforcement. That wasn't paramedics. You know, so all that, like, it's all scripted. And what people don't understand is they are taking your money, for one, and they're using your money to try to get somebody in office that's gonna do you dirty and gonna forget your black ass as soon as they get in office. Because it's right back to the agenda of what we got to do, you know, which if Joseph Biden gets in office, these charges that Hillary Clinton is facing, she's going to get pardoned from. You know,
I tell people, man, if you think Biden is some sort of savior, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, that's what all of this is about. Like, anybody who think I'm capping or they think I'm crazy, you can look at the two executive orders that Donald Trump signed into law about human trafficking. When he signed the second executive order specifically was about going after the assets of anyone connected to human trafficking. That's when all of these CEOs start stepping down from the corporations.
People don't know, man. It's the child trafficking is huge, and it's a network, and a lot of people are involved that you necessarily don't would be shocked that are involved. And then when you see the connections with the organizations that are put in place to protect children, and you find out that they have pedophilic logos and that they have connections to, I mean, it's mind-boggling. And I understand for someone who has no kind of clue of what we're talking about, and they hear this, it's you know, it can be like, whoa, what are you talking about? I don't like the word conspiracy theory. I always say it's conspiracy fact, you know, and if you want receipts, there's a ton of them out there, but they don't even try to hide the shit. That's the crazy thing is, this stuff is not hidden. It's not hidden at all. It's right in your face. But as I said to you earlier, if CNN don't tell you it's a thing, most people don't believe it unless CNN says it. Right. So, like I said, I don't say to just believe anything that one person says. Do your research, and do look for your own, knowledge. But, I just find it interesting. I was watching the basketball game. I mentioned this to you earlier in the day, and it had Black Lives Matter on the court. Right. It's like, it just, it's funny.
Right. And to take it a step further about what we talked about, LeBron Sucker James, Bill Gates is one of the wealthiest men in the world, is literally talking about vaccinating the whole world, and has been talking about population control for all of these years. And you and none of these other celebrities are saying nothing, sir. Mr. Social Injustice LeBron James. But as soon as they put the black-white paradigm back out in front of people, you active, you running your mouth, you tweeting about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's sad because our people, we just don't think, we just get reactionary, and we don't actually think about things, and we don't say to ourselves, why didn't LeBron James say anything about the BS that Bill Gates was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Why did, like, and then on top of that, all of these world-class athletes that are in tip-top condition and everything else, they got coronavirus.
Right. Right.
How much they paid you, bro? Cardi B slipped up and said it. She said, I think they getting paid to say they got coronavirus. She was like, y'all need to pay me to say I got it.
I remember that.
You know, then if you notice, you ain't heard shit from Cardi B since.
Yeah, she's been quiet. Yeah.
I wonder why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And then it's a whole nother thing. The whole Nick Cannon thing too is interesting.
Scripted.
Right.
Scripted.
So it's
they already got the next show set up. It was all scripted.
Yeah.
Nick Cannon has been accused of performing fellatio on little boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, Nick Cannon is in cahoots with all these folk that's with all this stuff that we talking about.
Mm.
You know, the same Orlando Brown that accused Will Smith of raping him was when he was a little boy, said the same thing about Nick Cannon.
I remember that. Yeah.
You know,
it's interesting.
So,
it's interesting, man.
Let me say this about that Nick Cannon situation so people understand.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they continuously psychologically insert their dominance in popular culture. To say that if you say something about us, this is what will happen to you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, people need to understand that psychologically what that's all about.
Yeah, it definitely scared the heck out of people. And and one thing I have to say, as something that came out of this that I feel like it definitely needs to be addressed, is the late great Dr. Frances Cress Welsing.
Yes,
she was an amazing person, and she deserves our respect and dignity. And she's
correct.
The work that she did.
Correct.
If you don't read another book in your life, read the ISIS paper.
ISIS paper, right?
You know.
Yep.
So when and they've been disrespecting her since her death.
Right.
Like they've been disrespecting her left and right. Every chance they get, they disrespect Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. But
they do it to all of the real people. Like, all of the legit people get disrespected in that way. Right.
And and then there's a guy, I'm not gonna say his name, from your area that passed away, that they're lying in the state and all of that kind of stuff. I think you know what I'm talking about. He was a politician who recently died, and who got beat up on a bridge.
John Lewis.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna say his name, but like, I ain't gonna say anything about the man, why he's dead, but I just find it interesting how I don't like how they say he was great because he got his butt kicked, and that's how you should be. Like, they make this correlation, like he got beat up and he didn't complain or anything. He actually asked for more or something. Like, it's like, that's how you're supposed to be, is, get abused.
Controlling the narrative.
Right.
Controlling the narrative.
It's like there's people who did get their ass beat for Black liberation, but that's not the end of their message. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the abuse. It's the, it never stopped me from, going and fighting for my people. So So,
Right.
but it is what it is, man. But man, I have to thank you so much for coming on, and there's so much we always can talk about. You definitely are a real well-rounded person, and I know you. Once again, we're gonna have to do a show on the case that you're working on, and having that sister on as well, because
Yeah.
these RICO statutes, people don't understand. It was supposedly, it was brought in supposedly to get the mafia and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
but it's mainly for Pookie and them.
Right.
They try to make anytime when more than two black people together, that's a RICO case. And people don't understand. Like, people just have no idea. So you sit there and you vote for these certain law and order bills and stuff, and you are the one that they go after. Another one is the rape by deception. You know about that one?
No, go ahead.
There's a law that says you can be charged with rape because you lied. So, like, if I'm in a nightclub and I say, shorty, I'm a doctor and I got mansions everywhere.
Wow.
And she take me home and sleep with me, and then she find out I live in a basement, and I ain't got no money. You could have a rape charge put on you. And so many black guys are disproportionately hit up for that. Like, my thing is, then you shouldn't sleep with someone just because they're a doctor. Then you won't have to worry about that. But but
choose wisely, sis.
Right. So that's a whole story, the rape by deception laws.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
That's
and
crazy.
Then you can't use it if someone lies about what gender they are. You can't so someone if you sleep with someone and they lie about what gender they are, you cannot use that to get them. So it's interesting how this stuff works, man. You got to be careful. So when people say vote, when they tell you, because I used to go out and get those proposition, how they have those propositions and stuff they want you to sign and all of that. I used to work in politics, so I used to work, and I used to always say, you have to read those things through and through, because you think it'll be like, oh, we're trying to clean up the violence in our community, but then there's some draconian laws that will put you in, make everybody a gangster, So you got to be very careful what you support and what you vote for. So if you want to vote, make sure you know what you vote for, and don't just vote down, because that's the thing Black Lives Matters be talking about, is vote down, vote the Democratic ticket down. So whatever they, which is stupid. If you're a Republican, you shouldn't do it either. If you're independent, why would you just, because they send you a paper and they tell you what to vote for, you don't know what you're voting for, or if that's in your best interest. So you definitely, and then they also say that some will say, well, don't forget about the national, the local is different. Local is just like the national in a lot of ways too. They're all from the same pot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
by the time somebody gets to like a mayoral level, it's over with already.
Right, they're part of the.
Once they get past like county aldermen or some shit like that, it's over, Jay.
They part of the system, and they're vetted.
Yeah, they done sold. They sold. They done did backflips. They probably done did some weird sex stuff and everything, bro.
Yeah, so it's good to know, man. So so how can we get you in social media? What should we be on the lookout for you? Because I know you do. It's not a you don't have like a schedule. You just kind of go on when you feel like it, right?
Pretty much. It's always organic for me. But like what's good now is I do StreamYard, so I'm able to stream simultaneously from my YouTube platform as well as my Facebook page.
And if you're in the Atlanta area and you want to work on your hands, are you available?
I'm not in Atlanta. I'm in Southeast Georgia right now.
Oh, okay, all right.
The plan is to be back in Atlanta real soon.
Okay, but are you taking more clients and stuff?
Yeah, well, when I get back really fully functioning, I want to open my own gym in Atlanta. So that's the goal, really.
Nice, man.
You know. So right now with the music coming out, I dropped my first single on August the 1st on all streaming platforms. It's called Illuminati. And basically it's gonna be a real serious, aggressive political message about what's going on in the world today.
Love it.
You know. And from that point also getting ready to do some very, very groundbreaking things with the Wayne Williams case. Finally, you know, the nail in the coffin of all the lies is about to come. You know, and when I tell you we have extensive proof of the government conspiracy against Wayne Williams, we have extensive proof from the lie about the carpet evidence, fingerprint analysis, voice analysis, handwriting, everything that proves that beyond a shadow of doubt that he was set up and he was not the killer.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point, you know, pretty much I'll be getting back focused on the other things that, you know, I want to do versus, you know, the life that I basically, the last 7 years of my life that I devoted to getting this knucklehead out of prison.
Right.
You
know, did you see the HBO series about it?
Yeah, I was supposed to be one of the, I was supposed to be a consultant or a co-producer from the HBO series. And again, to show people how the process of usurping people takes place to give people a false narrative. In 2015, myself, Wayne, and another person that was on the Freedom Project was contacted by a guy named Matt Duff. Matt Duff is a producer that was working for a production house in LA, and I entered into a agreement with him to help do this documentary series. We shopped it to everybody, Netflix, Amazon, you name it. The only people who bought on it was HBO, who bid on it. They came back, they said, we want a named director and we want a celebrity to be involved. So we ended up, I don't want to say the celebrity, the director's name, because I don't want to pull him into this, but we came back, he said, okay, he'll do it. It was a very well-known director. Then we got John Legend, right? So when that happened, I was already telling Wayne and I was telling everybody involved, I don't know how this gonna work because Folk and his wife done been, because I've been hearing things for years about Chrissy and John Legend and their involvement with pedophilia and all of these different things. So I ended up having to take a meeting with a woman named Kelly Buchanan, in which I was supposed to meet with her for 30 minutes. We met for 2 hours. After that, John Legend was supposedly on board. 2018, we are getting ready to go to the table to negotiate, you know, how much money we're going to get for a budget and everything to do this documentary series with HBO. And boom, a fork in the road comes along, and now all of a sudden Jay-Z's involved. Right? Then the next thing we know, the person who we're entered into the agreement with, Matt, gets told that he has to step down. And another production company is involved under the direction of Jay-Z. And basically, he's muscled off the project and he has to sign a release or else. Then the next thing I know, I'm getting contacted. And when I get contacted, the producer now for the show says, "Oh, DeWayne, it's an honor to meet you. I've been following your work for 3 years."
Wow.
So they've been following my progress on the Wayne Williams Freedom Project and me making the public aware of Wayne's innocence for 3 years. And they basically came in and tried to offer me peanuts. And the only reason they was trying to offer me peanuts to do an interview with them is because truthfully they wanted a new interview with Wayne. And they wouldn't agree to our terms, so we ended up not being involved with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, there's a lot of whole lot of nuances and a whole bunch of different things that took place and a whole bunch of gatekeeper type stuff that has really happened in the midst of all of that I don't really want to talk about, but just for the sake of the conversation to let people know, like, this is the type of stuff that happens all the time. It's just fortunate for Wayne. I'm not the bend and fold type of dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I done got death threats and everything else, and I'm from the streets, so I done lived through all that, and I'm cut from the cloth. If you tell me you gonna kill me, well, nigga, when you see me, kill me. Because don't think I'm just gonna let you kill me.
Right.
So whatever you say you gonna do, you gotta do it. So fortunately, because I've continued, more people have reached out to me that were basically sitting in the stands rooting for me, and they like, man, this is BS. What happened? This is what I can help you do, and this is what I can help you do. So now all of the dots are starting to connect, and the stars are starting to align, and real soon, everybody can look forward to a whole lot coming out that's going to be very, very how could I say it, revolutionary as far as what's about to happen with not only a look into this case, but a look into the criminal justice system and the prison industrial complex as a whole.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
I'm so happy, man.
Yep.
All right. So once again, how can we connect with you?
And I appreciate y'all too, man, for giving me the opportunity to come and to discuss things, on you guys' platform. Because for somebody like myself, it's very hard for people to understand how much I've had to go up against and how many people have been placed in the way. Payne Lindsay, Will Packer, Jay-Z, John Legend, like I could just go on and on and on about it,
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate y'all, man.
Thank you, man. Once again, how can we get in contact with you again? Are you on you're on social media, right?
Yep. So I'm on Instagram as Red Pill Gang 99.
I don't even think I'm following you on Instagram. Let me see. Red Pill.
Yeah, Red Pill Gang 99. Then I'm on Facebook as DeWayne Hendrix, DeWayne Hendrix, Hendrix. And then I'm on YouTube as Kaba Ib Atunre. That's KABAIBATUNRE. Kaba Ib Atunre.
All right. I got it.
The spirit, the soul, and the heart of the undifferentiated one.
All right. I love it. You guys can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram, and of course the website is indyradio.org. This indyradio.org. And Dr. Vibe, how can we get you? You're
best way to reach me at my website, So I'm here.
Mm-hmm,
DrVibeshow.com.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Great show, you guys. Man, excellent show, man. Great information.